A will to survive and persevere is a really powerful thing. If I take one person and give them exact same injuries and one decides he's ready to die, he will die very quickly. Whereas the other one, if they're fighting and fighting and fighting, they will live for a substantially long period of time, because it's amazing the power of the will to live and the will to overcome. And I think that's something that Hell Week and SEAL training teaches you.
Welcome back to the Mulligan Brothers. Today, this video, I'm joined by Jason Redman in a very exclusive clip. Jason's one of those guys that has an abundance of stories to tell you, but has a great way of articulating how those lessons could apply to your life. Today's episode, as always, is sponsored by HUEL. I'll talk about these a little bit more later on in the video, but this is the HUEL Black Edition that I have been using for the past 3 months now. I think that HUEL's had Black Edition ready to drinks out, and it's an absolute game changer. So find out more with a link down below. Let's dive into the video. So you finished the training, and I mean, what was that moment like, passing?
All of SEAL training, or when I finished Hell Week?
When you finished, I mean, Hell Week specifically would be,
Hell Week was amazing. I mean, to know that I had finished it. I mean, Hell Week is the biggest crucible of SEAL training. I mean, there's still some other ones, and Hell Week is what bonds every SEAL. And there are frequent times that many of us have talked about that it was your ability to get through Hell Week that later would enable you to grind through the hardest moments in combat. And I would, my moment in combat became a mental, it was a focus on staying awake to stay alive. Like, I knew that if I let go and closed my eyes and went to sleep, I'd never wake up again. So in some ways that came back to those lessons. And I've talked to other guys that have been shot and in crazy situations where a will to survive and persevere is a really powerful thing. I mean, I think any paramedic or doctor can tell you, when someone decides, we may not be able to stay alive indefinitely, but I guarantee you can stay alive if I take one person and give them exact same injuries and one decides he's ready to die, he will die very quickly. Whereas the other one, if they're fighting and fighting and fighting, they will live for a substantially long period of time, because it's amazing the power of the will to live and the will to overcome. And I think that's something that Hell Week and SEAL training teaches you.
I definitely want to go back to the will to survive, but what was the moment that you achieved your goal of becoming a SEAL like?
So fast forward, training, Hell Week is in the very beginning of training. I do want to, it's kind of a funny story, just to finish Hell Week. You're so cold during Hell Week and you've been shivering for so long. I remember we were finally secured. We got sent to our rooms, and we had these metal frame, but they had these plastic seats, and I dragged it into the shower, and it was a open bay shower that had 12 shower heads. It was probably 12 feet long and 8 feet across. And I took all the jets and pointed them right at this chair. And I laid in that chair under this hot water and slept for hours. So I'm sure any new students who were there and came in the shower, bro, there's this skinny, shriveled up, naked dude asleep in the shower. So that was I remember pizza, Gatorade, and laying in that shower and just oh my God, trying to warm my frozen soul up. Fast forward to the end of training. I mean, training from Hell Week, you still have 4 months of training before you graduate. Hell Week's actually in the beginning. When you graduate, and then the other thing with that is when you graduate, that doesn't mean you're a SEAL. That just means you've made it through the first phase. I try often in my book, The Trident, I write about that. Basic underwater demolition SEAL training is kind of like high school. And then you have to go to college, and then they assign you to a platoon. And almost, if you look at it from a medical thing, you got to do residency before you're actually officially a doctor or a practicing doctor. That pipeline is kind of similar to us. So you get assigned to a team after you've gone through some advanced training or college. and then you have to prove yourself, kind of like a residency phase, if you will. So I didn't get my Trident until probably another, I don't know, year and a half after training. But yeah, pretty amazing moment. Back in the day, it was a huge rite of passage. The entire team would line up. The commanding officer would have all the new guys who were getting their Tridents. And back then, we used to wear camouflage uniforms, and we had black Tridents that the older, the other guys wore in their uniforms. But on your dress uniform, it was a gold Trident, and they would present you with that, but then they would tack in your black Trident and they would punch it into your chest. And man, it was an amazing rite of passage. I mean, yes, there's a picture in my book where my chest is all bruised from having 200 teammates, punch my Trident in. But it's such an amazing rite of passage. And you just feel amazing. Like I'm a part of this community, this warrior community, and I've done all these things to reach this level. Yeah, pretty amazing. They don't do that anymore. Not allowed. That would be hazing, is the way they look at it now.
So I mean, in a situation where, I mean, you guys are putting your body through hell anyway, they're not allowed to have those moments anymore.
No, I mean, there are random moments in the military where things got out of hand. That's the problem. And we live in this knee-jerk society where we throw the baby out with the bathwater, where maybe a pinning ceremony, whether, I don't know of this occurring in the SEAL teams, but I know in other units where, they were so aggressive with punching and, it like punctured a lung or it did some long-term damage. So it became, hey, this will never happen again. It's unfortunate. I think there are culture and traditions that make us into who we are. That's a part of the fabric of a warrior culture, a national culture. And because one person says this isn't fair, we don't like this, or we happen to have a couple of one-off instances, then we say we can no longer do this. So it's unfortunate. I do think that was, for me, it was an amazing rite of passage, and to culminate that experience.
I hope you're enjoying the highlights so far. Today's video was sponsored by HUEL as always. This is the HUEL Black Edition. I've been using this for the past few months now. HUEL Black Edition has just been released in the US and it is amazing. It has 35 grams of protein. It's ready to drink. It's got 26 vitamins and minerals and slow release carbs, meaning that you can fuel your performance or your day-to-day life with this. Find out more with the link in the description. Did you feel satisfied, or did you set, we spoke about setting the bar higher, like how long before you just went, I need another?
For a while, I was super satisfied, and I just focused on trying to be a SEAL, and I also think I had somewhat of a good balance. We weren't going to war back then, so we trained hard and we played really hard, and it was just kind of part of the SEAL culture. Sometimes I look back on that and I'm like, yeah, I probably played a little too hard. But it was an amazing time as a young man to grow and hang out in this community. I still had insecurities, but I squashed them most of the time by trying to be as good as I could be. But I always, I think, was pushing myself. I always had this drive I want to be, the best, and where I have the ability to be the best. So and I did. I excelled. I did pretty well as a young enlisted SEAL, enough so that I did several deployments to Central and South America, doing counter-drug stuff and working with other nationalities throughout Colombia and Peru and some of the countries that were down there. I learned Spanish. I was fluent in Spanish back then, so I was one of our primary instructors. I got really good with communications equipment. I was smart in how I could make it work, which is a critical part and job within the SEAL teams. So all of that led to me becoming a training instructor, through being and I did well at that, through being a training instructor, which I'll take a step back. I think that also for the first time taught me, hey, I enjoy teaching other people what I've learned. So that probably was the first time that I learned standing in front of people and sharing what you've learned has power. But did well enough with that I got recommended for a commission. And at this point, it's, it's 1999. We were still in peacetime. There wasn't a whole lot happening in the world, and I was starting, I think, probably, I need to level up. And I had two different options. I had an option of going to our higher tier SEAL team, and I had an option to go the officer route. And I'd been recommended to do that. So I decided I was going to take that path. I had met my wife recently. We were dating. I felt like, hey, someday the military is going to end. This is probably a smarter path. The retirement pays better. It'd probably be easier to get a job afterwards. So it was kind of more of a pragmatic approach that led me down that path.